All right, I'm quite excited today to be bringing you Tezuka versus Villalva, two players I think tend to be really interesting. I'm also happy Tezuka is starting because Villalva has some tendency towards side starters, and this rule set has some tendency towards side starters, and I don't feel like looking at side starters. So, kind of glad to see Tezuka starting here. It's not that side starters are wrong here or wrong in general, though, I have opinions there, but it's just not what I feel like looking at. So I guess you first want to be checking. No, I swore I was not going to be looking for starters, but let's break my oath and let's look for starters in a moment. All right, moment passed, and we have our starter, and it is a side starter. Boo, Tezuka. I will now be rooting for Villalva. Now, it's a good thing I didn't start looking for starters because I was looking at the red hand for starters, not the blue hand, which is, always on point. So this is a defensive side, classic defensive side. 4-5-4-1 is the recapturer. It is not an aggressive side. It's not controlling 1 and 7. Villalva has safe play in either square with 4-6-1-4, and potentially could think about, should at least consider moves like 5-5-2-2 and 7, with the point that 3-4-1-6 and 8 can be met by 4-2-5-3 and 5, or the like. Um, you do want to be checking those moves. I noticed that 3-4-1-6 and 8 is covered, but 3-4-1-6 and 2 is not. So your candidate moves, if you want to play next to it, are 4-6-1-4 and 1, 4-6-1-4 and 7, or something with a 5 to the right in 7. I think are the kind of human moves. Like the solver will occasionally be like, ah, yes, of course, 3-1-7-3 and 1. But no thank you. Um, but now I want to calculate that because I said it and because you do cover some things. But Villalva goes for the plug, as Yojimbo called it, and I believe Villalva informed me that Yojimbo called it this. I don't think I definitely didn't know that, and I think it was Villalva who told me that. So thanks, Villalva. So the idea is usually to take the squares that you didn't have coverage of in 1 and 7, and you have now potentially played against both of them. So Tezuka's recapturer has a 5 to the right, and this gives play against neither of those fives. So not a traditional plug here. Hmm. All right. So maybe the reasoning is something like 1 and 7 going second in them is valuable enough that I don't mind not having coverage of it as long as they don't have amazing coverage of mine. But Tezuka does have very good coverage of Villalva's. For instance, if Tezuka plays 4-5-4-1 and 1, and Villalva sticks one of the fives to the right in 7, and Tezuka plays 3-4-1-6 and 8, that's safe and it grabs 7. And so Tezuka goes up 6-4, Villalva makes it 5-5. Or sorry, Tezuka keeps it 5-5, Villalva goes up 6-4, Tezuka goes up 6-4, and he has locked in basically 3 cards to Villalva's 1. Maybe Villalva can just block 2 there and it's all fine. It might be all fine, actually. I was thinking that 2-1-5-5 and 3 had a good chance to be winning at the end because 5-4-2-5 is a plus and 6, but Villalva can just block 6 there with 3-1-7-3 exactly. I was thinking it covers 4-2-5-3 and 6, but 3-1-7-3 exists. Tezuka notices this move, notices that 4-5-4-1 has 1 and 7, and switches up the move order. So in my version, Tezuka goes 1, Villalva goes 7, locking in 4, and Tezuka goes 8. Here, if Villalva takes 7, Tezuka goes 1. You get the same position, except that Villalva has the card in 7 at the end instead of the card in 4. Given the lack of combo potential, I think this makes no difference at all. I think these are effectively identical lines. Tezuka's way, though, he might have some optionality. I don't see how it would help him, though. I was thinking if Villalva plays 7, Tezuka could play 9 instead of 1, but I don't think he'd want to. So I think this generally transposes, except And I still wasn't sure if that was a win or tie. A faster calculator than me can probably figure out. My guess is it was a tie, actually. I think the 3-1-7-3 in that endgame was sufficient to tie. But Villalva goes in for this structure. Now, I always find these positions somewhat confusing to calculate. It's not something I'm used to. It's not a type of position I get a lot. But I would think that Tezuka can think about this in terms of paired squares and actually do something very similar to the other lines, even though it looks totally different, which is 4-5-4-1 has 1 and 7. You're happy with that. That is sufficient for those squares. Therefore, 2-1-5-5 and 3, the idea I was hoping would win at the end of the other line. Oh no, it gives a plus and 6. Villalva still is 4-5-2-3. All right, so that's not such a good idea. Okay. Okay. And if you start 5-4-2-5 and 9, then Villalva can play 3. 2-1-5-5 and 6 does nothing. Villalva goes 1, you go 7, you tie. Interesting. Now, if Tezuka plays 7, Villalva kind of has to use his 4-2-5-3. And then he's pretty dead up and down. So maybe you probably start 7. 4-5-4-1-7. I think Villalva has to go 1 with 4-2-5-3. If he has to do something else, you're in great shape. Like, it's hard to not be winning there. And then you go... No, you still don't have it. What am I thinking? Yeah. Huh. I was trying to make 2-1-5-5-3 work there at the end, but of course there's still 4-5-2-3 and 6. Interesting defense. I feel it should lose, but I'm not finding a win. Oh, very interesting. Yeah, I wonder what drew him to this setup. I also wonder if 7 was just tying. I think there's a good chance Tezuka has a win, but I'm not finding it. I'm really drawn to 1 and 7 are good for us, but they're not actually that good. They're really not. Because 4-5-4-1 holding 1 and 7 for later is just saying at the end of the game Villalva goes 1 and you go 7 and you recaptured nothing. You need to be ahead before that. And as long as 2-1-5-5 and 3 never lands well, and it, as best I can tell, never seems to, then it's really hard to go plus on the right. Note there's no plus wall, so 2-1-5-5 and 6 never hits the 6. Yeah, Tezuka's taking his time, which I strongly approve of. He's picked up 4-5-4-1. I'm gonna guess it just goes in 7, but there's one cute line where it goes 7, Villalva goes 1, and then you play 5-4-2-5 and 9. And the cute thing is Villalva cannot go 3 because you same both of his cards remaining because they both have a 2 down. But Villalva holds with 5-5-2-2 and 6. Should have mentioned that line earlier. It's a cute line. All right, he goes in 1. Actually, kind of interesting because by giving Villalva more choice, you're maybe giving Villalva more chance to go wrong. Right? If Villalva uses 4-5-2-3, then suddenly 2-1-5-5 and 3 works. So I was drawn to 7 because it is the more forcing move. But in a situation where if you can't find a win and you're confident this ties as well, giving the opponent more choices, like giving them one choice but it ties, they will tie. Giving them 3 choices and 2 of them tie, you've given them more ties, but you've also given them a chance to lose. Right? Because if 4-5-2-3 lands in 7, Villalva suddenly wins. Now, is 4-5-2-3 going to land in 7? No, Villalva's too good. But I actually quite like this move in 1. I didn't consider it, but I think this is one of those things of I am, like, obviously, like, when I'm playing well, I think I'm a very good player. But I think one of my weaknesses can be a lack of practicality. Like, I think I am very practical in ways of organizing my play such that I minimize the chances to lose. But I think I have two weaknesses in practicality. One is in somewhat neutral positions, I will not give my opponent as much rope to hang themselves as other players will. And also, when I am lost, because I tend to play a very controlled style, um, I am not great at finding the kinds of moves that unbalance the game enough that there's a good chance they won't find the win. Yeah, Villalva. Ooh, I really enjoyed this game. I was very skeptical of it at the start, but that move in two, I mean, it felt like it should lose to me, but that it didn't lose, and that the way it divided the board in two worked out favorably, despite using a 7, which I thought was going to be a really useful card. I think it's very interesting. I'm going to start putting this into my database. Yeah, interesting game. Curious if there was anything there. I think 3, 4, 1, 6, and 8 basically just transposed to what I was giving. It did allow this option in 2, which going in 1 wouldn't have. But I don't think going in 1 got anywhere, so anywhere better. So I don't. Yeah, I think this. There's a thing where like you're like that made sense. It was a good game. This didn't make sense to me, but I think it was a good game. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Um, but we will do a quick solver check. There's a chance around move 3, and if I both Tezuka and I miscalculated, there might have been something on move 5. That's very possible. Um, but I think I'm really curious, so I'm going to start bringing up the solver as well. I think we just had a solid game, and where Tezuka correctly took a bunch of time, because this is the position where you should have had really solid winning chances. And so, like, I think he's doing everything right this game. But Villalva's conception, as his conceptions often are, off the beaten path for me, but not unsound or unreasonable. That's cool to see. That's why I was excited for this match. I think it's two players that find ideas that are not natural to me. Um, so the big question is, did Tezuka have something on move 3? And I'm going to keep refreshing just so I don't miss the sequence of the last few moves before I fully check on the solver. All right, Tezuka picking up and putting down. I guess we'll get the answer. Was there a win on move 3? Yes. There were 3 wins on move 3. This did not work. Hmm. All right. We'll come back to that in a moment. One of the wins was in 6, a square I do not check, but I'm also not used to playing these positions with cards in 4 and 5 in this order. Another was a square in 3, which is a square I tend to be slow to get to, but like, you know, Seto or whatever would have played 2, 1, 5, 5, and 3 or something. Is that the move? Let me check. Sorry, I just moved stuff. Now I'm confused. Play a move. So 5, 4, 2, 4, and 6. All right. Okay. 2, 1, 5, 5, and 3. I think that's tough to find. So the plug did not theoretically work, but it did work in practice. But there's one more win. There were 3 wins here. And the third win is 4, 5, 4, 1 in 7. Why was I thinking 1? I was thinking 1 because I wanted to combine it with 8. But 7 forces some recapture, and then you still have 3, 4, 1, 6 safe in 2. Maybe that 1 dangling out on 4, 6, 1, 4 gives you more play? Ah. Okay. So the key difference, the reason on move 3 that 7 was better than 1 is because any card Villalva can put in 1 has a low number facing to the right. 3173 or 4253 are the two captures in one. And both of them have a low number facing right. Now, I thought this didn't matter because I was intending to use 3416 in either 2 or 8, using its safe 4 to the outside, and given that its 6 can capture anything, so I didn't think it really mattered that much what number Villalva put out. And you can see Tezuka was also drawn to this 3416 and 8, and he played it even earlier. But the reason 7 first was winning is because if Villalva goes 1, you now don't have to play 3-4-1-6 and 2. You can play 5-4-2-4 and 2. There's another card that can go in 2, and now there's no safety in response. You kept your 6 to the left. The reason, and I was correct about various lines I gave where I go 1, they go 7, I go 8, that them 2 was tying. The reason that's tying is because the card they play in 2 is safe. By holding on to 3-4-1-6, we make that card not safe. So by sequencing 1 and 7 really accurately, we can hold on to 3-4-1-6, and then they don't have that safety. They can't build that wall out at the end, and you get the win. Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, I didn't get that. I missed the subtleties there. Very neat. Um, and just checking the game, because Tezuka goes in 8. This should still be very dangerous for Villalva. He has 6 ties, and he plays in 2, and I thought this was tying, and it is tying. Yeah, nice find. Nice find by Villalva. Well held, and I think like something I'm not always very good at is crediting that a hold can be good even if the solver says it's wrong. And I think this was a neat hold. All right, let's go on to a second game. All right, Tezuka always with the 4-5-1-4 apparently. This means, yeah, there's just a very high chance we're going to see 3-4-3-4 and 4. It is both a reasonable move to make, and you have just been looking at moves like this, so you are likely to be drawn. Like, if you have just seen examples of something, you are likely to be drawn to it more. Now, sometimes you will explicitly turn it down. Something I have with a bunch of chess students is I show something and kids, and I'm like, show it back to me, and they will try to show some changed version of it. They will try to like be like, okay, I can't show exactly what I was just shown. I have to show something new. And so by putting something into their heads, you get them to think I have to not repeat it. I have to do something new. But in fact, they should just be repeating it. You were trying to get them to repeat it. I hate Villalva's hand, by the way. And we do see 3-4-3-4 and 4, showing that it both is a move type Tezuka likes here, but also very likely to have been drawn to it quickly, having already seen the synergy between card with 3 up, 3 down, and the 4-5-4-1, especially when the opponent has a left weakness. Now, Villalva's hand sucks, in my opinion. But we did learn something. The solver in a previous game, which game was it? Which game was it? I think it was a Smokes vs. Dalamar game. I don't remember which one it was. But there was a game with just this army of awkward sevens. And they were so clumsy and tough to use. Yeah, it was Dalamar's excellent hold in the second to last game. It was a really great hold. He had 3271, 1713, 2731, 1337. He had horrible weaknesses up and to the left. 1337 giving just a little play left, but he was horrible going up. Smoke started in 1, and Dalamar managed to hold that game in one of the most impressive holds I've seen in a long time. But that's what I thought. And then the solver said, no, there were lots of moves that tied. And then I checked a bit, and the solver with a little more press, like if you checked a little more detail, it went lots of moves tie on move 2, but all of them have very narrow paths to a tie. So it's easy to just check a position, be like, oh, lots of ties. This must not be so dangerous. Or like slightly fewer ties than average. Okay, this is only slightly more dangerous. You check in a little more detail, and sometimes you find, oh no, this was very dangerous. And I think it's safe to conclude on that game, it was very dangerous. Um, oops, just noticed an error in my keeping. All right, fixed it. Okay. In fact, found why I screwed it up. Okay. Um, but it was a great hold, and it was a hold with a hand that was clumsy in the way this Villalva hand is horrible. Lots of redundant cards, lots of sevens. One advantage that hand, however, had was it had at least one seven to the left. Here, it's even more redundant. And the best strategy with that hand, it was against a starter in 1, not 4, but was to play in 6, setting up stuff where the sevens had play. God, Villalva's hand is just so bad. But he does something interesting. He makes a challenge. And the game is. Huh. So there's a lot of things you have to consider if you're Tezuka. You do not have an attack on this in 6. You could play something like 4-5-4-1 and 5, giving 3-3-2-5 both sides, and 4-1-2-6 one side as well, and 2-4-4-4 one side as well. So you could do some 5 setup here and say, I want to have both sides. I can get both sides. I'm going to take that. You could also build out from your starter. One thing I would note is my first instinct, if you were going to do that, would be 4-5-4-1 and 7. Their only capture is 1-3-7-2 and 1. And then I was thinking you have the plus with 2-4-4-4, but you actually get comboed back there. They have 2 different cards for 5. You can also start with 4-5-4-1 and 1, which likely, well, no, it gives 2 options. It gives 7-1-2-3 and 7, but it also gives 1-3-7-2 and 2. I would think 1-7-5 and 2 are the main moves. But I think the key point of Villalva's move is you can't take from 6. He goes for the 5 setup. I should have said this. I was thinking of saying Tezuka's totally going to go 5. Tezuka goes 5 when there's an option to. Sadly, I did not say it. Well, you the viewer can choose how generous you want to be to me with I obviously did not call this, but I called it in my head. And you can trust me or not on that. 2 was also a pretty interesting choice. But sacking 3 to 2 is very different than sacking it to 6. Because sacking it to 2, if they go 2, at least you get 1 for free. But my question was, how valuable is 1? I wasn't sure. On the other hand, I wasn't really thinking. Because the thing about 2 is it also gives combo in 5, so Villalva might have more tools than that. Okay, so I can see not going in 2. I would have probably spent a while trying to make 1 or 7 work. I just don't love going in 5. It's just not. I feel like it gives too much optionality to my opponent, and I want to. I mean, this is a thing of kind of my practicalness. I want to minimize what my opponent can do reasonably, such that I can be confident that I am not losing or in trouble in any line. And a move like this gives a lot of options to your opponent. So, for example, Villalva has safety in 1, he has safety in 7. If you were going to play in 1 or 7, what's your instinct to the better square? Because I have a very strong instinct for 7. Because what I don't like about 1 is Tezuka goes 2 and I have no play in 6. But if I start in 7 and Tezuka goes. There's 7 is like never met by 2. So if I'm going 7, I'm knowing, all right, we're not at least on the next move sequencing it, so they go 2 and I'm stuck with 6. If I go 7, they might go 6, I'm fine with that. If I go 7, they might go 8, fine with that. If I go 7, they might go 1, then I get 2, right? All these things lead to me getting the better squares. That doesn't mean I think it's a good move, but I'm just saying I think 7's a lot more appealing than 1 here based on how the following squares play out. Villalva goes for maximum synergy. He has a plus in 6. He has a plus in 8. And he has now cards that face the action. He doesn't have captures on the bottom row anymore, aside the plus and 8. So let's say Tezuka played this simply. Let's say he played 4-1-2-6 in 6, saying, I'm not going to be comboed through 5. I don't need to flip anything, and I'm going to keep my 2 best cards for this endgame. What happens there? If Villalva goes 8, he goes up 6-4. But Tezuka can then play 2-4-4-4 and 7, making it 5-5, and 3-3-2-5 sweeps the top sufficiently to win. And I'm not sure what sequence Villalva can take that would essentially avoid that. No, maybe he could start in 2. I think it has to be exactly 2. Yeah, I think he can start maybe just anywhere on the top. Because if he starts on the top, but let's say 2. Say he plays like, I don't know, 2-7-2-2 and 2. Then the point is he can combo back through 8. Maybe 1-7-3-1 and 2 is better. But I think there maybe should be a hold in 2 there. Interesting. I haven't been putting in the moves. I should do this. So my guess is either Tezuka is winning or had some path to be winning. Now this walks into combos. But he is saying, I'm getting rid of your good squares. I wonder if 1-7-3-1 and 2 is good. No, it isn't, because you don't have enough play in 6. Okay. So the thing is, Villalva has a card that can capture back in 6. But he needs to go up at some point or he's going to lose this game. And Tezuka is saying, if you go 8, I have 6, and you kind of have to go 8. So Villalva really needs to find a way to have a threat somewhere else. And I don't think he can. I don't think the cards are offering that. I think this is a very good move by Tezuka. Yeah. He found a way to get rid of Villalva's good squares. Now, it's possible the 6 sequence was working. I don't know. Don't trust my calculations these days. They're not that great. Some would say they never were, but I like this move in 7 a lot. I think this was appropriate to the situation and correctly realizing where the problem squares were. And I like how Villalva confused the game. And I think Tezuka here, because I think Tezuka's winning now, did a nice job of not letting it confuse. All right, so the solver says this hand sucked. The solver says, yeah, and so we should not be. I mean, no one ever like criticizes players in my videos. It's great. I don't get like people going, ah ha ha, what an idiot. But after Tezuka's starter, so I thought the Dalamar hand was really bad, and it had that 1-7 to the left, and that 1-7 to the left was enough to mean there were 20 ties and 20 losses against the starter. Now, those 20 ties were hard to find, and they were also very narrow paths, each one of them. And so that Dalamar ended up tying that game, I think is just as I said, super impressive achievement. One of the best games in this tournament so far, for sure. However, oh, did he find a way? Am I a buffoon again? He might have just held this. Because 4126 is dead. Maybe he needed to play 4126 and 7? Oh man, good hold. Okay, I shouldn't say that because I haven't fully checked it. But like I should have checked this because the point is just 1372 and 2. If you play 4126 in 8, you don't flip anything. Oh no, but then 3325 dominates. Okay, this isn't a tie. What am I talking about? I thought you had just enough captures, but you just don't. I thought you could play 1372 and yeah, okay. I'm a buffoon. Yeah, this does not hold. Always talk before calculating. That way you'll get things wrong and then have to correct yourself. Never do the thinking first because then you might get things right and no one wants to see that. All right, what's happening? So Tezuka wins. But what I was saying was Villalva after the starter this game had 2 ties. We can flip you over to that. Villalva had 2 ties. So did this move tie? No, I don't think so. You know, there are 4 wins here, but also this was a horrible, horrible random. Now what's interesting, yeah, so 5 does win. 1 was also potentially winning, though with a hot card. 4, 1, 2, 6, 7. So actually, the moves I was looking at basically didn't work, and the move Tezuka played did work. So this is winning. Yeah, and there was just so few tools. My best guess was something like this, which gives 4 whole wins. Villalva played here, which also gives 4 wins, but I think is a bit trickier because, as you can see, something like this does not in fact win because you play on the top row, and the point is you can combo back. So I think this was a very tricky try, and just about the best he was going to do. Tezuka played here, and it is winning, despite the fact that I decided for a second that this tied. Alright, so really well converted by Tezuka. Very accurate play from him. And honestly, like, it looks like, given how horrible that random was, Villalva made it about as contentious as it could possibly be. Right? He did not make it easy, and that is worth a lot. But it turned out, like, worth a lot means I think he saves that game a higher rate than he's supposed to by like 5-10% or whatever. Is that worth a lot to you? I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. So yeah, 2 games, both difficult randoms for Villalva and difficult positions, and I think he defended both really well actually. Tezuka very clinical in game 2. Yeah. What I've liked so far about Kefka is most of the matchups I've just thought were well played. Like the Smoke Stalamar matchup, there were some really, really cool holds. This matchup showed some really cool defense. I didn't catch any of Vid's stuff. But yeah, I just like the defensive prowess on display. All right, we'll end there.